Hi, I'm Katie Foster. I'm 17. Well, I'm nearly 18. I left school last year with 6 reasonable GCSEs, but since then, I suppose you could say I've been resting really. I'm living with my mum and dad still. There's not really been much pressure to go out and earn a proper living. But I can't sponge off from all my life though, can I? I'm not really sure what I want to do. Something in an office or a shop maybe. Anything really. I know we ought to get down to some fairly serious job hunting pretty soon though. I have got a Saturday job. It's in a hair salon in town. I've been there since I was at school. You know, like shampooing hair and sweeping up. And making coffee for the customers, just general dog's bloodying really. I quite enjoy it, and it brings in a bit of spending money. Just lately, they started to let me loose on taking telephone bookings. OK, Mrs Johnson, is that a cut and a colour? You know, meeting and greeting customers, that kind of thing. So I suppose it's been useful experience, but I'm not really sure that I see a career there, you know. During the week, I also do some cleaning. Me and 2 friends do people's houses as a team. We've got cards in all the local shop windows, and we seem to get quite a lot of work through word of mouth. Good, reliable cleaners seem to be like gold dust these days, and people pass our names on to their friends and neighbours. Do a bit of typing for people as well. You know, like students who need the projects and essays doing, that kind of thing. I just went into the local uni one day and stuck cards on all the notice boards, and the phone started ringing straight away. I learnt to type at school. Pretty fast now, I think, and accurate as well. I know your CV is really important, and I think the main thing is that it's got to stand out. Employers get hundreds of CVs, and if yours doesn't get noticed, well, you can forget it. Yeah, I think mine will get noticed.
Well, you're absolutely right when you say that your CV's got to stand out. But, well, I'm not too sure that this goes about it in quite the right way.
Oh, OK.
I think the main problem is that it's all style and very little substance, whereas really it should be the other way around.
Oh, how do you mean?
Well, what I think we ought to do is look at the purpose of a CV, what it's for, and how it fits into the overall process of finding a job.
Right.
Your CV is a crucial selling document designed to persuade an employer that you have the skills and achievements they're looking for and therefore worth interviewing. Its aim is to get you that interview, to get you through the door. You'll use your CV when writing to companies on spec or when applying for specific advertised vacancies, if that's what they ask for. On other occasions, you will be asked to fill in an application form, but that's a different story. The employer is likely to receive hundreds of CVs, especially if it's a large organisation, a recruitment agency. The recruiter needs to whittle that down to a manageable number in a short space of time. Their desire, therefore, is to find reasons to reject as many as they possibly can. Your CV then, in probably no more than 20 or 30 seconds, has to persuade the employer that your CV is one that should stay out of the bin and go onto the pile marked for interview. They're not going to do that because it's on fancy yellow paper, but because they can immediately zero in on the qualifications, skills and achievements that they are looking for. You look like you may be able to meet their needs, and the recruiter wants to find out more. So it's the content of the CV, the substance that needs to grab the reader's interest and create the right impact. The presentation of it, on the other hand, needs to be understated, but smart, professional and businesslike. If you come round here, I'll show you what I mean. So let's leave out the fluorescent paper. Use white A4 paper, pale grey or cream at the most extreme, and make sure that it's good quality, 100 gram preferably. You need to create an air of quality that's going to reflect upon you as an applicant.
See what you mean.
So, lose the fancy borders and the garish colours. Black and white looks so much crisper. And I wouldn't bother with a cover or a binder like this. They just add clutter and make it difficult for the employer to home in on the key information they need. The same goes for title pages. It's just wasting space, and what you really need to be doing is keeping your CV to 2 pages maximum. And I don't think photographs add anything either, unless you're applying to be a model or a TV presenter perhaps, but there really is no advantage to using photographs, and they don't tend to photocopy well. Don't mix print styles and fonts like this, but go for a clear, simple font rather than fancy decorative ones. The layout needs to be simple and uncluttered, with plenty of white space so it looks easy on the eye. And it is vital to avoid bad grammar, poor spelling and typing errors. Aha, I've just noticed one there actually.
Where? Oh yeah.
These can make you look careless and lacking in attention to detail, and it really is a big no-no in job applications to use the sort of abbreviations that become so common in such things as emails and text messages. I know it's very common amongst young people, so do be careful. It's always a good idea, in fact, to let somebody with a fresh pair of eyes have a look over your CV just to check out for these kind of basic mistakes. And I'm sure it's obvious to you, but make sure the printer gives that clean, crisp look we're after. A laser printer is best, but an inkjet printer will do. Just be careful to avoid smudging. And it really is a big no-no to use a typewriter. A typewriter suggests you're out of touch with the modern world. If you don't have a computer, borrow one. Persuade someone to do it for you, or get it done professionally. And finally, to maintain that professional look we're after, make sure that when the employer receives the CV, that it's in an A4 envelope rather than folding it.
So what about the content and structure of my CV? I mean, what should go where?
Well, I think the first thing we ought to say about your CV is that you aren't restricting it to a particular job or career or industry. Therefore, your CV needs to be fairly generic or a general purpose one. As I said earlier, your CV has probably no more than 20 or 30 seconds to create the right impact and grab the reader's attention. At the moment, your key information doesn't appear until page 3. The employer will never get that far. We've already done the title page, now we need to look at your general personal information. Most of it is irrelevant and should go, but what we do keep can be moved right to the end.
So what information should I not include in my CV?
Well, I think you need to ask yourself about every piece of information. Is this going to help my case? If it doesn't, lose it. So I wouldn't include any of the following: your height, weight, or other physical characteristics. The employer just isn't interested. Anything to do with your health. Unless your health is poor, it's just not relevant to an employer. And what's the point of introducing a negative at this stage and run the risk of you getting rejected? And anything else which is negative or suggests failure, such as exams failed, negative reasons for leaving a job, marriage breakdown, or the collapse of a business. But you can deal with these at the interview if you want to. But what's the point of bringing it in now and run the risk of being rejected before you even get there? Anything to do with your religion, sexuality or politics. It's just not relevant, and it may give someone the excuse to reject you. Irrelevant hobbies or interests. The only thing you need to include here is interest that's going to positively score you points with the employer. For example, if you've held a position of responsibility, or if the hobby is relevant to the career you're applying for. I mean, there isn't much point in saying that you're into stamp collecting if you're applying for a job as a lorry driver. Your current salary or your salary expectations. This can only act as a reason to reject you as too expensive. It can't possibly get you an interview, so leave it out. If you specifically ask for it, put it in your covering letter. References. It's highly unlikely anyone will want to take up your references until they're on the point of offering the job. In other words, after the interview. Again, just put them in your covering letter if you're specifically asked for them. The only thing you do need to put down as personal information then are your date of birth, sex, if it's not obvious from your name, marital status, just putting single if you're divorced, and those relevant hobbies and interests that we talked about earlier. And as I said, we can tuck them right in at the end.
Now that stuff's moved out of the way, I can lead with the key information that the employer's really interested in, my skills and experience.
That's right, hit them right between the eyes immediately.
But since I haven't really got any experience, never having had a full-time job, I mean, what skills have I got? What have I got to sell?
Well, let's think about it. What about your job at the hairdressers? What qualities do you think you've developed there?
Well, I am quite reliable.
Well, they must think so, or you still wouldn't be there.
Pretty hard working, I think.
Ditto. And on a Saturday when it's busy, you have to work effectively under pressure.
And as part of a team, because if I don't get the customer's hair washed, or if the place is a tip, then the stylist can't do their job.
And you must be confident and personable meeting and greeting customers.
And they must think I sound okay on the phone if they're letting me take bookings.
Great, we're building up a strong list of qualities here. And what about your cleaning job? Going into people's houses while they're out? Well, they obviously regard you as honest, trustworthy and reliable.
And again, is working as part of a team.
That's right. And you showed a lot of enterprise and initiative getting the thing up and running in your local area. And then there's your typing work, plastering the uni with cards. Shows a lot of self-motivation as well.
My IT skills should be a strong selling point.
Absolutely. As should your attention to detail and again your reliability. Excellent. Let's bring the three lists together, and what we have here is an attractive list of skills and achievements that will appeal to any employer. And some of these skills appear repeatedly, like reliability, initiative and team working, so we can really major in on those.
OK, so how do we turn this into an effective CV?
Well, what we need to do with your CV is tell potential employers that you have all these qualities and substantiate it with clear evidence based on your past achievements. This is how I suggest we structure it. At the top, of course, your name. You don't need to include your middle name, by the way, and if you like, your actual name's Catherine, but everybody knows you as Katie, then just use Katie. Then your contact details, your address and phone number, including, if you wish, your mobile number and your email address. Next, probably the key section of the whole CV, which employers will read first and which really needs to capture their attention. A 3 or 4 line summary of what you're all about and what you have to offer. This would be compiled from the key list of selling points we built up earlier, and in your case would be something like a reliable, hard-working young person with excellent IT and telephone skills, etc., etc. Then supporting that summary, a listing of your key skills and achievements, just giving a little bit more detail. For example, strong IT skills, proficient in Microsoft Word with typing speed of X amount of words per minute. We then need to provide evidence substantiating your list of skills from your work experience. So, for your Saturday job at the hairdressers, you list all your duties, responsibilities and achievements, such as responsible for coordinating customer reception and pre-styling preparation, or something like that, without saying anything that's untrue or overselling yourself, which you need to avoid because you'll get found out at the interview. It maximises your role and certainly sounds so much better than just saying you wash the hair and make them a cup of coffee. Then the same for your cleaning and typing enterprises. Even though they're not actual jobs, they're still work in which you've demonstrated tangible skills. Some details of your education, but only list your subjects and grades if they're particularly impressive. And finally, the personal information we talked about earlier, including any relevant interests and other activities. As you can see, the layout is clean and well organised, with the use of section headings, bullet points, capitals and bold type, with short punchy sentences in positive dynamic language rather than paragraphs of waffle, makes it very easy for the reader to navigate and home in on that information they need. This is 100 times better, isn't it?
I'm really pleased with it.
And so you should be. It looks great and it really captures your attention and tells you what you're all about. If I was an employer, I'd definitely be putting you on that interview pile. Well done, Katie.
Thanks, Helen. I'll let you know how I get on.
My name's Kevin Nelson. I'm 36 years old and I'm fed up. Why? At the moment, I'm working in this factory that makes shop display units out of plastic. All I really do all day is polishing and packing and stuff. A monkey could do it. Suppose that's why I'm paid peanuts. It's not enough with a wife and 3 kids to support, so in the evenings I work behind the bar at the local. It's okay, but I'd much rather be at home. Why am I in this position? Well, about 8 months ago, the company I used to work for, Peterson Electrical Contractors, went belly up. I was out of a job just like everyone else. I've been there for 10 years, worked my way up to installation manager. Damn good job. I'm a damn good electrician. Been in the electrical industry since I left school, 20 years. That's what I'm good at. That's what I want to do. I've applied for several jobs since, which would have been right up my street, but not a sniff. Don't even seem to be able to get an interview. I can't understand it. So I've had to take the pub job and the factory job just to keep some money coming in. Doing my head in. I don't know how long I can put up with it.
Well, whilst I think this is a smart, professional-looking CV, Kevin, I think there are two major problems with it.
Oh, right.
Firstly, it's miles too long. 4 closely typed pages is way too much. An employer just isn't going to bother reading this, and 9 times out of 10, it'll go into the bin for that reason alone. Loosely translated, curriculum vitae means life story. Well, I think that's what you're giving them here. All your CV should contain, then, is just enough information to grab the employer's interest so they can decide quickly whether or not they want to interview you. So, let's hack down the content drastically.
Okay.
Secondly, because you're applying for a job solely in one field, namely the electrical industry, your CV needs to be much more career-specific. At the moment, it's quite generic and contains a lot of information that is of no relevance whatsoever to an employee in the electrical industry. Making it career-specific will be able to cut down the length even more.
Yes, I see.
You're obviously a highly experienced, qualified senior electrician. You know that, I know that, but an employer, they're just not going to bother wading through masses of irrelevant waffle to find those buried nuggets of information which will tell them that. It's too much hard work. And that's why you've not been getting any interviews.
Oh, well, at least we've identified the source of the problem now.
And the solution? Let's start hacking it into shape. For a start, all this stuff about your education, it's taking up half a page. And unless you're a recent school leaver, an employer just isn't interested what school you went to, what subjects you took and what grade you got in each. When you left school, say, 20 years ago like you, all you need is 2 lines saying so many A-levels, so many O-levels, or GCSEs as they are now, and that should cover it. What's more important in a career-specific CV like this is what professional qualifications you've attained since, what training courses you've been on, what professional bodies you might be a member of. In your case, that would be something like the Institute of Electrical Contractors, that kind of thing?
Sure.
Right. And I think we can also lose a lot of these personal details. Height, weight, health, irrelevant hobbies and interests. And, at this stage, your references. The only kind of information that should be going in here is stuff that's going to positively score you points with an employer in the electrical industry.
Right, well that's got rid of the best part of the page already.
Absolutely. Now we need to look at the guts of the CV. This needs to focus on your key skills, knowledge and ability, which make you irresistible to an employee in the electrical industry. But rather it being a long history book about what you've done with your career in the past, it needs to tell the employer what you can do for them in the future. Not what you've done, but what skills you've developed as a result, which you can put to work for them in order to meet their specific needs.
Yeah, I see the difference.
So, after your contact details, it needs to start with a 3 or 4 line summary of what you're all about and the key benefits of employing you. In your case, I guess it would start along the lines of Senior Electrical Installation Manager, fully qualified with over 20 years experience, etc, etc. And then it would go on to mention your technical competence, your experience of planning and costing projects, your supervisory skills and so on. Then to substantiate that summary, for each job you've had in the electrical industry, starting with the most recent at Peterson, a list of 5 or 6 succinct, punchy bullet points setting out things you've achieved and key skills you've acquired. These should be specific, provable facts rather than vague, subjective claims. And, if they're measurable in some way, so much the better. Reduce wastage costs by 30%, saving the company £50,000 a year, for example, is so much more impactful than saying, made the company more efficient. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And finish off with the brief education and personal information we talked about earlier, and that should do it. This is so much better.
Definitely.
And I love your summary. A senior electrical installation manager, fully qualified with over 20 years' experience in the industry, competent in all technical aspects of installation, maintenance and repairs, as well as costing, planning, team supervision and customer liaison. Used to working effectively under pressure and to tight deadlines. Reliable, trustworthy, with exceptional attention to detail and quality standards. And your list of achievements really back this up in a strong and dynamic way. You use just the right sprinkling of industry buzzwords as well. It's important in a career-specific CV like this, but without lapsing into jargon or management speak. Oh yes, an employer can now discern immediately who you are and what you have to offer. Compare this to your first life story, the CV. Employers are bound to want to know more. And I'm confident that from now on, you'll be going straight onto that interview pile. Excellent.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Vikram Khan. I'm 25 and currently I work as an accounts assistant for a chemicals company. I enjoy the job, but even though I've been there for over 4 years and passed all my professional exams, there doesn't seem to be any sign of promotion opportunities on the horizon. I'm an ambitious guy, you know, and I'm thinking maybe I ought to start looking around. I will be sad to leave, but you've got to look after number one. Came home tonight and spotted this in the paper. What do you think? It's got my name on it, hasn't it? Good money as well. I'm going for it. Just print my CV off. Prepared it a few weeks ago so it'd be ready for when the right job came along.
And the result was?
Just a standard rejection letter. Thanks but no thanks, keep your letter on file, blah blah blah.
And that surprised you?
I'll say. That job was right up my street. Obvious.
Obvious to you, and probably to me, but was it obvious to the employer?
Well, it's all in.
Oh yes, don't get me wrong, it's all in here, Vikram. It's a very well-structured CV, and it would do very well if you were just writing to companies on spec about general job vacancies. It looks professional, and the structure's right. It's a good generic CV. But here the situation's a bit different. In this case, you're responding to a specific job advertisement, and the employer has set down some very definite requirements. Experience of dealing with suppliers in the chemical industry, in-depth knowledge of using Sage accounting software, demonstrable success in achieving credit control targets, and so on. Your response to that ad needs to show directly how you can meet each of these particular needs.
Right.
Sure, it does mention in your CV, if you look for it, that you've worked with Sage, you've worked in the chemical industry, you've used credit control and so on. But it's buried in amongst all sorts of other information that the ad just doesn't mention. The employer hasn't got the time or inclination to go looking for information that's buried. What they're looking for is a CV that responds directly to the requirements of the ad. A one-off, tailored specifically to meet the needs of the job. A job-specific CV, in other words.
I see what you mean.
Sure, it's going to take a little bit more work and effort to produce a one-off tailored CV like this, but it's got to be worth it.
Oh yes, yeah.
So the summary of your CV, starting at the top, has to deal with each point head-on. In your case, it probably needs to start along the lines of an ambitious accounts professional with over 4 years' experience in the chemicals industry. That's one box the employer can tick immediately. An advanced user of Sage, having gained several qualifications from several industry training courses. Another box, etc., etc. Going on to mention your credit control experience and everything else the job ad refers to. To provide evidence backing up your summary, for each accounts job you've had, starting with your current job, you need to compile a list of 5 or 6 bullet points setting out the things you've achieved and the key skills you've developed, again in direct response to the job requirements in the ad. Wherever possible, these should be objective and quantifiable. On credit control, for instance, you could say something like reduced average outstanding invoice times from 22 days to 13 days, or whatever's appropriate. Do you see what I'm driving at?
Oh, absolutely.
You need to paint a picture in the employer's mind of what you can do for them, but be careful to make sure it's credible and honest. If you oversell yourself just so you can meet the requirements of the ad, you can be sure that you'll get found out very quickly in the interview.
Of course.
So finish off with the education and personal information you've got here, and you're done. Let's see what you come back with. This is really hitting all the right buttons now.
Thanks.
Excellent summary and loads of solid evidence backing it up. This employer can't fail to offer you an interview.
Bit late, unfortunately.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh well, next time.
Next time.